Hi, this is Samir Bhartia, and welcome to another episode of TFR Insights. This week, SUSE contributed its EiriniX project to the Cloud Foundry Foundation. EiriniX is a framework that allows developers to build extensions around Eirini, enabling them to focus on getting features into production in a real Kubernetes cluster. To learn more about the project, today we have with us an esteemed panel of experts. I would like to invite Dieu Cao, product lead for Tanzu application service and Cloud Foundry Foundation PMC Council Chairperson. We have with us Vlad Iovanov, technical lead on the SUSE Cloud Foundry Project at SUSE, and Troy Topnik, senior product manager at SUSE Cloud Application Platform. First of all, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Swapna.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So let's go one by one. Can you please tell me what is EiriniX? What problem were you trying to solve that you created the project?
So EiriniX was conceived as a way to help the Eirini team. So we had a number of features that we wanted to see in kubectl, our distribution of Cloud Foundry application runtime for Kubernetes. We wanted to see feature parity between Eirini and Diego, which is the sort of traditional scheduler within Cloud Foundry. And there were a number of things where we thought we could help as SUSE, but we didn't want to get in the way of the Eirini core team. And so we talked to them about developing a way for us to add these features as extensions to Eirini rather than into the core. And so Vlad came up with the design.
Vlad, let's talk about the design of Eirini.
You know the Linux philosophy, do one thing, do it well. The Eirini team, targeted that. Very good thing to try and aim for. And that also meant that Eirini should do just one thing, do it well, not try to do everything that Cloud Foundry does, because that would have overwhelmed the team, right? So they focused on translating Cloud Foundry concepts into Kubernetes. So your applications run as Kubernetes pods, stateful sets, and so on. And we thought, how can we add on top of that? So we started thinking about an add-on framework. And Kubernetes is great in this respect. It has so many features that allow you to extend and expand on top of APIs. So we drew from our experience working on the Quarks project, working with the controller runtime for kubectl for Kubernetes. And we built this framework that allows you to quickly start a project that adds some add-on capability to Eirini. And this could be some sort of watch. So if an app is created, then your code runs and you can interact with that app. You can mutate that app or just view it and put out logs, or really anything that you can imagine you should be able to do with this. And it was just meant as a quick way for people to get their ideas out.
Now, none of you are new or strange to open source. The project was contributed to the Cloud Foundry Foundation. What overall value does a project, the community, the ecosystem get once you place a project into a foundation? So let's talk about the value that it brings, and then we can also talk about some of the other examples that you can cite.
Well, the short answer of how this ended up in the Cloud Foundry Foundation under its governance was Yui asked for it. and it's for a very, very good reason. We developed it, of course, within the SUSE organization on GitHub. We put it under the same license that everything in Cloud Foundry is under. But speaking from experience, you're always a little hesitant submitting PRs or including code into your own projects unless it's in the realm of a neutral governance organization. Would you say that was part of the motivation, Yui?
Yeah, it originated with one of the other members in the community asking, "Hey, I see this Eirini SSH project. It's in the SUSE org. Is it actually okay to use? Will it go away? What's the governance of it? What's the status of it?" And I think the capability with Eirini SSH in particular is one that we were aiming to achieve anyway in the Cloud Foundry project, which was to bring the ability for application developers to be able to SSH into their application very easily. And so I reached out to Troy and asked, hey, could you all consider donating this to the foundation? So it's very clear the ownership and provenance of it, and so other folks in the Cloud Foundry community feel freer to be able to make use of it.
Right. And you made a very valid point, and I just want to ask both, because we are all committee members here, that once you see a project which is being driven by a company, the confidence that you get once the project moves to a neutral foundation, does it really play a role in the adoption or contribution to the project? Because suddenly you do feel that, hey, this project is being maintained by a neutral body versus it's at the mercy of a company.
I was going to say there are a couple of different ways in which things get donated to foundations. And this is very clearly on the side of we're donating this to the foundation so that we can get increased involvement from the community. There is another case that happens where companies are not particularly interested in maintaining some piece of software anymore and are just saying, well, if you want it, here it is. It's part of a foundation. And they're kind of washing their hands of it. That is not the case with this one. We are very much trying to engage the community to develop more on this extension framework.
Yeah, I was going to say that from our perspective, I think it's about accelerating development, getting that community feedback, and that's very useful. And I think having it in the hands of all of these engineers will definitely accelerate development, and that's something we're very interested in.
And you, from your perspective, of course, you already mentioned that you asked them, can you contribute this project to a foundation? What role did you play, not only in convincing the other team, but also your team as well, to kind of start a discussion around moving this project into the Cloud Foundry Foundation?
I think really what I was looking to drive is just more collaboration between all of the companies that are participating in the foundation and the community members that are participating in the foundation. So in my role as Cloud Foundry Foundation PMC Council Chair, in my role at VMware, trying to support the Cloud Foundry community, when I see some software being developed off to the side where I feel like it's a benefit to the community. Can we bring that out? Can we have that out in the open? Can we talk about that with the rest of the Cloud Foundry community? Can we develop that all together? Because we're all supportive of the Cloud Foundry project and its community. I look for those opportunities to ask for us to have that in the open and not just in separate company repos where it's not clear can the community use it and depend on it. And because we have a life cycle for projects within the Cloud Foundry community, it won't be so surprising if something goes away because we have a process for that. That I think the foundation structure really protects.
It keeps us honest because there are a certain set of standards for how things are end-of-life or retired in the Cloud Foundry community. We can't just pull something, kill something. It really has to go through a process. We have to notify the whole community that this software is going to be end-of-life unless we get a maintainer, unless you have a valid use case for using it. There's discussion that goes on a mailing list. There's a really strong impetus to get everyone notified and everyone aware of changes that are coming. Because, a lot of production systems will come to rely on this technology.
Troy, you talked about, and even you mentioned about the life cycle. I want to know the evolution of a project which is contributed to the Cloud Foundry Foundation, what does the governance look like? How do you ensure the sustainability of the project, life cycle of the project, and also get more community members involved?
Yui, I'd like you to take that one.
This kind of varies, and I think governance is always evolving as projects continue to evolve. As it stands right now, a project can be proposed for incubation into Cloud Foundry, and then within each of the project management committees that are within Cloud Foundry, there are three. There's a Bosch PMC, Cloud Foundry PMC, and Extensions PMC. Oh, and the Open Service Broker PMC. And each of those are allowed to establish processes for when does that project graduate. And within those projects, they can start up sub-projects or initiatives within them, and they can have those be incubating to active, and there are processes within that as well. And then there's another process for should something be time to deprecate or go to the attic. There is an established expectation of communicating that out to the community, and if people are using it, giving a fair amount of leeway, a rather long period for that deprecation cycle. And if people aren't using it, then that's fine. We can move it to the attic. And as part of that process, there's also a call for volunteers, other folks in the community, or other projects within the community who might be interested on taking on the maintenance of that. And so just trying to have those be established norms, as opposed to just written in the governance documents. And then I think beyond that, having care for the users of the software, so that we're not just surprising people when something is coming in, and we're not surprising people when something is going out.
I'll talk to Troy and Vlad. You both work on Eirini team, or you're also heavily involved with the creation of EiriniX. Can you kind of, you have already mentioned that in the beginning, but can you tell a bit more about Eirini versus EiriniX? What is the difference? Where things overlap? How people can leverage these projects and technologies?
First of all, neither Vlad or I are on the Eirini team directly, and that was one of the reasons we made this extension framework so that we could work independently of the Eirini team. Teams are constrained to a certain size to make communications better for the different projects. And again, as Vlad mentioned, there was a lot of work to do, and we thought this EiriniX extension framework would be the way to do that. We're involved much more deeply in the kubecf and Quarks projects. Myself, as a sort of project manager, I'm not actively involved in development, but Vlad is the architect for those.
Vlad, do you have anything to add there? The difference between the two projects?
Yeah, so we do collaborate with the Eirini team a lot. We meet from time to time, and we talk about features and what's coming and what we need and so on. So this EiriniX came out of this collaboration that has been going on with the Eirini team, where we were asking, hey, when is this coming out? Are you going to do this and that? And then we realized that it just wouldn't make any sense that they do all of that work. So we found this approach where we actually don't have to steal any of their time, but add to their work. So that was great. And to your earlier question about what's the difference between Eirini and EiriniX, Eirini, its goal is to take information from the Cloud Foundry API and convert that into Kubernetes resources. So make your application run on Kubernetes. Treat Kubernetes as a scheduler instead of using Diego. EiriniX cannot live on its own. It needs Eirini. It doesn't work with any other scheduler for Cloud Foundry, so it wouldn't work with Diego. And it's just a framework to help you build extra stuff that you might want, like we did for SSHing to your app or persistent support. The ability to have something like isolation segments with Eirini. Yeah, and maybe convert the idea of isolation segments into tolerations or maybe node affinity rules.
Yeah, and for those who maybe aren't familiar with what isolation segments are, that's one way that Cloud Foundry with Diego attempted to allow to kind of shard the deployments and have one control plane responsible for other groups of Diego VMs and or Go routers are routing layer there. And so I think the equivalent here is how might you do that against other clusters, Kubernetes clusters in the CF context. Is that right, Vlad?
Yeah, we are thinking about multi-cluster as well as just being able to separate Diego cells and maybe have them, you might want to have one set of nodes run apps just for an organization and another set of nodes for another. That could span multiple clusters or maybe in the same cluster. Definitely something interesting, I think.
Lots of possibilities for policies that can be injected. The great thing here is that we've got a number of use cases for EiriniX, but the community is going to generate way more. If somebody wants to do a specific kind of security scanning on the containers that Eirini creates, you can inject it. You can create an extension to inject that policy step. You can do it at different stages of the life cycle of the application. So there's a lot of different things. And also, I can't remember what it was we came up with this morning, but there was another really good use case. Oh, EiriniX would be perfect for this. And about the relationships between different projects. So we had developed, for example, EiriniX SSH to fill a need in kubecf. Well, that same need exists in a parallel project, which is CF for K8s, which is sort of a larger refactoring of Cloud Foundry for Kubernetes. And it was as Yui pointed out, it was silly to duplicate that work. And when we had a mechanism in place that could function for both teams, so all of these teams are working actually very closely together in a coordinated fashion, which is a real credit to the community.
Now, since we are kind of talking about use cases and users, can you talk about how does EiriniX help developers kind of simplify their workflow?
So EiriniX kind of accelerates your development to adding a new feature. When developing on top of Kubernetes, you likely have to use either an operator framework or use the controller runtime Go library. You have to read a lot of docs to understand how to extend Kubernetes, either with the CRD or by adding watches or by adding validation or mutating webhooks. It's a lot of work, and it takes a lot of engineering cycles to understand how to do all of these things. What EiriniX does for you is that it sets up everything that you could require to get started, specifically for apps deployed by Eirini. So you don't have to worry about how do I set up my hooks, how do I, start the HTTP server for those hooks, and so on. How do I set up watches? They're kind of there waiting for you. So you just care about the logic of your awesome idea.
And I wanted to add to that a very important distinction in the kind of developer we're talking about here, because a platform user of Cloud Foundry will not be interacting with building things on EiriniX. So they will generally be deploying applications to the platform, which is governed by the workflows of Cloud Foundry. And those workflows are defined by the components in it. One of those components is EiriniX, which allows this extension mechanism. So the first people who are going to interact with EiriniX are the teams that are developing the Cloud Foundry platform and maintaining the Cloud Foundry platform itself. The next set, which we hope will engage with it, is those platform integrators or larger organizations that are investing some time customizing their Cloud Foundry for their particular use case can work with this extension framework to customize the Cloud Foundry lifecycle. So what happens to applications when you deploy them to Cloud Foundry? They may have some very specific use cases that aren't covered by the 90%. So basic Cloud Foundry application developers who are just pushing application code to the platform won't really interact with EiriniX, but it's working for them behind the scenes. Those people more deeply involved in the maintenance of the platform will be interacting with EiriniX.
Right. They'll get the benefit of the integrations, additional capabilities that EiriniX aims to be able to accelerate via its extensibility. But hopefully they won't have to know very much about EiriniX at all. It should disappear into the background, and they'll mostly benefit from the capabilities. So if you're a Spring Boot user or a Python developer, you'll hopefully just notice the new capabilities that are available there, and less about the specific extensibility underneath.
I want to talk a bit about Kubernetes as well. That how does EiriniX kind of streamline developers' interaction with Kubernetes?
As I mentioned before, trying to extend Kubernetes is not easy. It can be done, right? The set of APIs and integration mechanisms and extension mechanisms that are available to us as developers for Kubernetes are amazing. You can do so many things, but it's not always simple. And like I said, there's a learning curve to it. So using EiriniX, that learning curve is diminished because the library is meant to help you with one very specific thing. It's just about Eirini, apps deployed by Eirini. They're very specific. They're identified using some well-known labels. So you can get started on whatever you want to build very quickly. And like I said, like Troy said, the real amazing thing would be if actual customers or integrators would pick up EiriniX to build some in-house features that they really want.
So if you look at EiriniX, all of us, we contribute, we engage with the open source community. What value is it bringing to the larger Cloud Foundry ecosystem?
EiriniX is one of the bridges that we're building within the foundation, within the Cloud Foundry community, to join up different projects so that we can make each other's work easier. That work has been accelerating over the last several months, over the last year, I would say, where we're preventing duplication of effort between the teams. We're increasing the level at which we can work together on standardized interfaces within our code base, and we're just helping Cloud Foundry itself go faster.
Awesome. Yuvi, Vlad, Troy, thank you so much for taking your time out today to talk about EiriniX, and I look forward to talk to you again because I'm pretty sure the project will continue to evolve, and so will the use cases and new challenges that those use cases will bring.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.